it was just excruciating, emotionally and mentally, to really accept the fact that your child was not going to be normal, because that's what they said to me. That they said to me, your child's never going to get married. He's never going to live on his own. He's never going to do all the normal things. He'll never have a date. And these doctors told me this. Say hi.
Hey, y'all, welcome to the episode today. Listen, I'm super excited. I'm super stoked about doing this. This is take two with my guest today. We've known each other for a long, long time. She has been on an amazing, amazing journey that I think is really going to inspire you. It's going to encourage you. You're going to get a lot of insight from Monica today. And there's a couple things. If you know me, you know that I believe sometimes life gives you the opportunity to build muscle before you need it. And I also believe that life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you. That things happen along the way that open up doors and pave the way for maybe what your calling or your destiny or your purpose might be. And so I want to introduce to you my friend Monica. She is the president and founder and CEO at Bridge the Gap Sin Gap Research and Education Foundation, which is a mouthful.
Yeah. I think we got the longest name in the rare disease community for an organization.
Right. She's worked with the Epilepsy Leadership Council, at the American Epilepsy Society. She is on the Advocacy Advisory Committee at the American Brain Coalition. And it's a funny story. She actually got her degree, her undergrad degree in secondary ed when I did with teaching biology. So she's taught biology for 23 years and finally retired in 2016 to pursue this. And here's the deal. In November of 2012, Monica's twin son, Beckett, she has two twins, Piper and Beckett. And Piper we were talking the other day, is kind of a spitfire all her own, right, in her own right, man. And Beckett was diagnosed when he was younger with a rare neurological disease that's labeled, it's called Sin Gap 1. And I'm gonna let Monica talk about that in a little bit. But first, Monica, hey, thanks for being here. Thanks for your friendship through the years, and for being here today and spending some time with us.
I'm excited. Thank you for having me. You know, it's always a pleasure to be able to share and try to encourage other people in their own journey. And I believe that, this opportunity is a way to inspire others to do the same, because no one's journey is easy at all. It's not a piece of cake. So I really appreciate the opportunity to share. And it's been so long, and I'm glad we got to reconnect and, and also be a part of your journey and helping you get started in yours. So that was, I think 20 something years later, after we were in school together, it was like, wow, how you just never know who's going to cross paths again, and how that works out. And then, life is just a puzzle. And so, but I appreciate this opportunity. I'm so excited.
No, thanks. It is a puzzle. And you, like you say, you never really know what's going to happen. So speaking of, take us back to the twins, to Beckett, to November of 2012 and his diagnosis, and kind of give everybody watching, everybody listening, a little backstory of your journey.
We decided, after 3 all in a row, like bam, 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 I thought I was done having kids before the age of 30. But, life took me on a different path. And in a nutshell, we decided to go through IVF. And the first time it worked, which we were very blessed by that. Actually, I had three babies, and we had lost one of them, and had the twins. And moving forward, I guess after the twins were born, having so many children, you notice those milestones that your child is meeting or not meeting. And with twins, it was actually easier to see. So I noticed at about 4 months that Beckett wasn't meeting his milestones. Fast forward to about 4 months, you'd go to the doctor and they say, oh, he's a boy, he's slow, boy, they're going to take their time. He's just lazy. Because I thought I left the hospital with a healthy baby, two healthy, bouncing, screaming, doing their thing, right? We began to notice, differences and changes. And, when his sister was sitting up, he wasn't sitting up. He wasn't crawling. We went through 19 different specialists, 4 neurologists, in fact, many different diagnoses. And I think the kind of person and personality that I have in working with science, I knew that there had to be something wrong. And we finally ended up getting to Texas Children's. After about, 18 to 14 months, we were on a waiting list to get into the Myers Center for an autism evaluation. And still to this day, the waiting lists are that long to get into evaluations for young children. So it is definitely a need in the community to get more physicians inspired to do that. But we finally got in, and I think this was the worst, probably one of the worst days of my life, is when you're sitting down listening to a physician talk about your child who is, a little over 4 years old, or about 3.5 to 4 years old, telling you that he has mental retardation. And at the time, that was the term. Now it's called intellectual disability. I mean, just to put it in context, but you hear that and your heart sinks. And then they said, we're going to send you to genetics. So that was another few months out that we had to, it was just excruciating, emotionally and mentally, to really accept the fact that your child was not going to be normal, because that's what they said to me. They said to me, your child's never going to get married. He's never going to live on his own. He's never going to do all the normal things. He'll never have a date. And these doctors told me this, and they held no bars for that expectation, and it was crushing. Everything was still in research phase. They were just identifying certain genes, just at the tip of the iceberg on looking at genetic causes to autism, epilepsy, cancer. All of these things were just entering into the phase of science and research and in medicine. And my geneticist said, well, we can go ahead and try to get the whole exome. We had already gone through thousands and thousands of dollars worth of other testing. When I was pregnant, those moms out there who've been through it's the test you have at 18 weeks pregnant, where they can determine, I forgot the name off the top of my head, where they can determine whether or not you're going to have a child with Down syndrome. And they gave me a 1 in 12 chance that one of my twins would have Down syndrome, which it didn't. Neither one of them did. But I always think about that to find if that's not somehow related to the science. Backtrack, I'm running down rabbit holes again. But the doctor said, your insurance might not pay for this. And I said, well, let's appeal it. Let's try to get them to pay for it. I said, but if they don't pay for it, I'm going to go take a loan out of the bank, out. And sure enough, I think the insurance only paid maybe $2,000 to $3,000. This was a $15,000 test. We had already gone through the karyotype, the Rett syndrome, the Fragile X testing. And then he told me, he goes, if you go and get this test and take out a loan, I told him I'm going to take out a loan. And I did. I took out a $13,000 loan, $13,000 to $15,000 loan. I can't remember, but I think it's more around 13. And I said, I have to know. It's something is telling me inside, do it. Because he only gave me a 20% chance to ever find anything on the whole exome DNA test. And sure enough, 14 weeks later, we got a phone call from Texas Children's saying that he was the first identified at Texas Children with a very little known gene mutation called SYNGAP1 that was identified to cause intellectual disability. Turns out, I still today have the notes, the chicken scratch notes in my little journal that I kept in my purse, that told me everything, which was maybe 3 sentences about this disorder. And then there was one paper. And he ended up being the 6th person in the world with this gene mutation. So that's kind of where I was when he was diagnosed. It was horrifying.
Well, yeah, I can only imagine. And that's one of the things that there's a couple of reasons I wanted to have you share your story today. One is we have friends and tribe. We call them our tribe. We've got tribe members in our Backpack Friends Nation and our Impactivist group who have special needs children. Okay, who have children, young children with Down syndrome or autism or somewhere on the spectrum with things like that. And as a mom of 5, as a career mom of 5 who was teaching and now has this, you're the CEO of a foundation now. That's super inspiring to people to be able to see someone else in the struggle, in the trenches, right? In the journey of trying to figure this out. And when you started this journey, you started a blog.
Yes.
Right. And then that blog became a book, which I have read. And I think I told you the other day, for me, it's like sitting on the front seat of a roller coaster, right? Because it's the up and downs, and you're very vulnerable and you're very honest and you're very transparent. And I think you're a great storyteller because it put me in that front seat of, you're giving your children, you're giving the twins a bath at night, right? And Piper is a normal child and being a 2-year-old or whatever, and Beckett's screaming. You have those disparities going on, and you're trying to understand and diagnose what's happening. So anyway, one of the things that you mentioned in your book that came out of your blog is the book is actually called what is it? Slow Moving Stream, right?
My special boy. Yeah, my special boy.
My special boy. And you didn't find out until later that Beckett's name actually meant slow moving stream.
And we named him before he was born.
Oh my God.
And the verse that we picked for both Beckett and Piper before they were born, we identified verses in the Bible. And Beckett's verse is Isaiah. Oh my gosh, it's going to kill me now. 31. It's mount up with wings as eagles. And
40:31. Yeah. Isaiah 40:31. Yeah.
Yes. And that's his verse. And you mount up. I mean, it gives me chill bumps because I'm sorry, I'm going to get emotional because that was God's stamp on his life through us for me to understand that was his purpose. And regardless of your weaknesses and whether people appear to be normal, what we call our normal, I will tell you right now, no one is normal. And everyone has flaws. Everyone has that that desire to want to be perfect. But you know what? It is okay not to be perfect. It is, you think you have to measure up to other people's standards. And, when a child is born with disabilities, I think the reason why I became such an advocate is because I myself grew up with disabilities. Learning disabilities, and that's my second book. is to really build off your calling, and you. But here's the thing. Here's the trick that I learned at 45. I think God. I don't want to say God is running around with a big stick trying to hammer people on the head, But I think God, with his persistence and the love that he has for people, will continuously nudge you in a direction, even if you're resistant, to where you need to go. And he will do it until you wake up. So it's like, instead of, and I think one of the things in the book that I said was, don't ever ask why. Stop asking why. If you ask why all the time, you are wasting your time. You should be asking yourself, what now? What now? And I will tell you, that train of thought took me 45 years to really get it.
No, absolutely. Because here's the deal. You said this. You said a couple things just then that I think is really important, that I want to validate. You were diagnosed with disabilities, right? You were told as a young third grader or something, right, who had dyslexia, you would, or whatever it was, you would never read past the third grade level.
That's correct.
And you went into, so you have to think about this picture, right? I think you're spot on. You're right on. Everybody has a purpose. Everybody, and it's not about asking why. It's about asking, okay, now what, right? What's next? So now what? So if you go back and you picture and take yourself out of it and just picture, here's a little girl who was told you're not going to read past the third grade level. Go get married, go do whatever. You're never going to be independent. You're never going to be a businesswoman. You're never going to be successful, whatever that narrative is. And then you go to college, and then you get an education degree of all things. And then you go into science and you teach biology for 23 years. And then you have a child that requires special needs, special attention, special provision, and you launch a research and education foundation for that rare disease. And now in the fall, you're going to start working on your law degree, right? So you're advocating at the state and federal level. You're in DC, you're in Houston, and you're going to start your law degree this fall. And so, like you say, it's finding out what that purpose is, what that thing is, what that calling is. I'm sure that there have been obstacles. I'm sure that there have been, family strains and financial strains, and moments of asking why, right? Moments of falling in the fetal position and laying on the floor going, oh my gosh, what?
I do that.
Right?
I still do that. It's definitely, it's all of those things. I think, we had mentioned, just preliminary, talking, is that social media can be a good thing, but social media can be a very, very deceptive message sometimes because of people's perceptions. You've heard of Facebook blues, right? Where you, you're posting all the pictures saying, I'm having vacation, and then 5 minutes later, they're arguing and fighting on the beach. But you don't see those pictures.
Right. No.
You really have to look deep in yourself. And especially in a leadership position where I'm at now, you have to be cognizant. And that's why I am so transparent, I guess, about your life and being vulnerable, because if you're not vulnerable, you're going to turn off other people that maybe will be there to help you. It has been very difficult. It's not all roses. It's not all going to receptions or dressing nice and going to galas. It's not all meeting very, prominent people in Washington or in Hollywood or wherever you meet these people, because actually there are people too. I mean, if you really get to know some of these people, they struggle with some of the same things. Sometimes motives are different, but it really is, part of what I want to be is real with people, because you're supposed to live an example to teach others. And I believe that we were put here to serve others. And with that service to others, you're going to be blessed in return by the things that you do get. And that's nice too, but that's not your focus. And I've learned through life, with the struggles that you mentioned, when they told my parents I wouldn't read above a third grade level. In 10th grade, they told my parents, and I'm thankful for my parents in this aspect, is that they never, ever told me these things until after I graduated from college. The counselor said, go put her in a skill. And listen, like I said, I love hairdressers. My hairdresser is the bomb. Love her. We need people that can do hair. I just wanted something different for my life, and that's okay. But they told my parents, put her in a trade school where she can learn to do makeup and art, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I wanted to go learn science.
But your parents didn't tell you that the counselor said that.
Nope. Because they didn't want to put limits and put a ceiling on the expectations of what I could do, because they believed in me. They believed I could do more. And I believe that people, one thing, you might not have money to give to an organization. You might not have the time to give to an organization. But do you know one of the other third things that I have found that will push a person to excellence and to completing their goals is a simple message of encouragement. Telling that person, you can do it. I might not be able to have the money to help you. I might not be able to have the time to volunteer for you, but guess what? I'm praying for you. I'm going to tell you that you can do it. Don't get up. Don't give up. Don't lay down. Rest, but never stop. And those words mean a lot. And
absolutely. And part of the reason I reached out to you about doing this is for people who are listening, people who are watching, they have probably heard multiple times what we call our 831 story. Right? Our origin story about how Backpack Friends got started. We started with 12 kids, and then through a series of coincidences, we ended up with X number of dollars, $831 actually. And we were trying to figure out, how do we start this nonprofit? How do we make this legit and feed more children and grow it? And let's just see, like you said, it's not about why, it's about now what. Okay, so we're doing this, and we received $831. So now what? The now what was, I need to reach out to Monica, because she was the only one I knew who had done what we were talking about doing. And who do I reach out to? What do I do? How do I do this? And you sent me documentation and connections and paperwork and like all this stuff. And I just took it and ran with it, because you were one that said, oh, you're going to do this. This is going to be great. You can do it. You can do it.
It makes me feel good to know that I helped.
Well, and so you are part of our origin story. I mean, you said reach out to Floyd Green in Houston, and I reached out to Floyd Green, and it was just faith in, okay, Monica's done this. I'm just optimistic. I'm just dumb enough to believe that we can do whatever we put our mind to. And I talk about in my book a guy named Roger Bannister, who you probably know the story, who everybody said you couldn't run a 4-minute mile, that you would die of a heart attack, you would have a stroke, you would like it couldn't be done. Well, he did it. And then in the next year, something like 26 or 28 other people broke the 4-minute mile because the first person done it. It removed that limit. And so it's been amazing for me to watch you over the
Sorry,
past
I'm getting teary-eyed because it really, your story is inspiring to watch you grow, and you really kicked some butt doing what you've done. And I didn't mean to interrupt you, but honestly, when you see the fruits of what you have done to help someone else grow and succeed, that's the reward. you know? I
But
have a lot of,
you're right. You're right, man. At some point, all those struggles, like your test, becomes your testimony, right?
Mhm.
When you follow that path and you lean into, okay, it didn't happen to me, it happened for me, and
Mhm.
now I'm leaning into that, and I can see, hindsight is always 2020. You look back and you go, oh, I learned this and I learned this and I was prepared for that, so that when this happened, I have these tools, I have these strategies, I have these muscles that I didn't know
Mhm.
I had. That is, your vision becomes so much bigger than
Mhm.
what it was, right?
Life doesn't come without risk. And those people that take risks over and over and over and over and over are the ones who make a difference in the world. And I am a true believer in that. You're not, I will have to say, if somebody calls me just a mom, moms are great. But you know what? Just a mom can change the world.
That's
Just
right.
a dad can change the world. You can reach every continent in this world, every person imaginable that you can. People said I was absolutely crazy starting this organization. An unknown disease. Who's gonna care? Nobody's gonna care about your son. You know, everybody has these other problems, but I had a vision that was put in me. And so don't ever say that one person can't change the world. We wouldn't have a light bulb if Thomas Edison quit trying after the 240th time for a light bulb. He failed that many times, but failure, like I told my students and like I tell myself every day, and I tell my own kids this, failure is not failure unless you stop and give up. You know, your failures, what you define failures, and you know, and I saw the question. You had a very pointed question in the group the other day about how do you define failure? And for me is you take your failures and you learn. It is a learning process. Growing is not fun. Growing hurts. You've heard, I mean, really your body. I mean,
Yeah.
think of the growing pains that you had when you were a kid, puberty. Oh my gosh, you know, with, you know, the even your bones ache and they hurt when you're working out and your muscles are hurting. You're growing them. And it's not fun. And so I do believe that if you take a step forward and you continue, you're going to have those, you're going to take 2 steps and maybe a 3-step back every now and then, but that's okay.
That's a good segue. So I have a couple more questions. One is, there are people who are watching this or listen to this who are people of faith. There are people who are watching it who are not people of faith. We have this really diverse community.
Mm-hmm.
But whenever I see someone who is super motivated, who has a big vision, who has a lot of motivation, um, that is typically tied to our why,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like for me to do Backpack Friends and to not get burned out, I better have some big old reasons, some big old fuel that's pushing me to do it. Like when we were, I don't know if I ever told you this, but when my brother and I were young, living in Baytown, mom would cook and we would eat at the table, and she would always kind of, we call piddle. She would piddle around in the kitchen, right?
We use
You
that
know,
word.
okay. She would kind of clean and move dishes around and, you know, wash dishes or put up stuff or whatever. And I didn't know it. But what she was doing was she was waiting to see if there was any food left. And if there was food left, she would eat. And if there wasn't, she would just clean up, and that was the evening. But she never, kind of like with you, they never told us that was what was going on. But as an adult, when I realized that, and then we ran across these kids who were hungry, it was like, okay, that's my why. It's because, you know, part of it is because my faith makes me who I am, and part of it is because I feel a responsibility because I was in their shoes.
Mhm.
right? So, so I always wonder, like, what is your why?
I mean, I'm going to put this out there. I'm a totally different person than I was probably even when you knew me. I've gone through struggles as a child. My own struggles of uh, growing up in a very strict home, disciplined, and things like it was very hard growing up because I had expectations put on me. I wasn't a straight A student, and my siblings, it came to my siblings very easy. So I went through my own struggles even at home. Because of my disabilities, I had two choices. I could either give up, fail, probably become an alcoholic, a drug addict in a mental institution somewhere, which I don't know. Maybe that's still in store. I don't know. No. I think I had to take my experiences and learn to seek how to change them, because there, in some instances, there is no one going to be coming to rescue you. And there were certain circumstances in my life where I became depressed. I became I was in a very, very self-conscious, codependent person. But to change that, I had to recognize that. You have to recognize and be willing to look at your own inner self and your own flaws, because if you're going to keep repeating, if you're getting the same result, then you're not changing. So, it's, that whole Dr. Phil saying, well, if it ain't working for you, then you keep getting the same result. Why don't you change? And so you really have, and that also is overcoming fear.
Yeah.
And I have struggled with a low self-esteem because because of my learning disabilities, because I was put in special classes in school, and everyone else got their electives. And while I sat in a room, it was like a fishbowl room, and they knew that it was a special class, in grammar school and in junior high, and those are hard years.
Yeah.
And watching people walk by pointing at you going, oh, she's in a special class, and I think it didn't hit me until I had my son that's my child.
Mm.
And I was nowhere near being as bad as what the symptoms and the severity of what he was suffering. And I was like, I have to be his voice. So I took my experience and my hardships and realized that I knew what it was like. I know what he's going through, but I can't let him suffer like this. But then also knowing that nothing was there, and knowing how I felt as a parent when I found out about this diagnosis, I've never felt so alone in my life. And I never wanted another parent to feel alone in this world with nothing to go to. There was nothing, a paper, 19 specialists, neurologists, I went through 4. They were great. They did the best they could, but they didn't know. And it all came like back to me, it was like a tap on my shoulder. I got the diagnosis 2 days later, and then I felt this whisper in my ear, this tap on my shoulder. And it was like, you need to do this. And then I got confirmation from one of the researchers I reached out to, Gavin Rumbot, Scripps Research, and I've known him for 7 years, and I consider him a friend. And I respect him more than anything. We work great together. We've found the mechanism that's linked to sensory processing in SYNGAP1, which we think overlaps into other disorders. But if you don't walk out on faith, these other doors will never open. And so I think my why ties into my childhood. It ties into my son. It ties into the experience I had as an adult, getting the diagnosis and understanding it. It's not sympathy. It's actually empathy. It's really understanding and putting yourself into someone's shoes and trying to change that, not just for yourself, but for them. And I really do believe that when you give of yourself instead of always trying to take, that's where true happiness lies, is when you give of yourself
100%.
without expecting anything in return. Now, it's natural to expect things, it is. That's because we're human. But true joy and true happiness, money's not going to make you happy. And believe me, I don't do this for the money. I don't. I don't do this for fame. I don't do this to be a public figure. I do not do this to have my name put out there. I do this to be an example for other people to know that they can do the same thing I've done, and that they have their own special calling. They just have to search for it and not be scared to search for it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's my why. That's a long mouthful of why.
No, that's good, because I think you're right. I think fear, number one, holds everybody back, holds most mm-hmm. people back, whether it's trying to be yourself on social media. You're talking about the Facebook blues, right? Fear is a big part of that. We have to project mm-hmm. that everything is great, everything's perfect. And we don't realize that vulnerability is a strength.
Yes.
I mean, it is a strength. That's what, as leaders, as followers, we want to follow someone who's vulnerable, who's authentic, who's mm-hmm. not superhuman, right?
Yeah.
And tying that to your childhood, I think there comes a point, maybe it's because we're getting older and we have at least a little bit of wisdom now. We've got enough mileage behind us.
They say gray hair gives you a lot of wisdom.
Right.
Now,
right.
I try to hide mine, but
well, and it's like it's not. There's enough. We've been through enough. We've got enough miles under our belt now that mm-hmm. we realize there's a difference between happiness and fulfillment. Mm-hmm. And when you're serving, when you're giving, when you wake up in the morning, you go, okay, how can I serve the world today? That's a very fulfilling place to be, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. So, okay, so last question, which I'm really stoked
sure.
about, is we could talk all day.
I know. I
have a lot of rabbits to chase. But for people at home or watching this while they're sitting in traffic, don't do that, by the way. But so for people at home or people watching this, if you could have one billboard, if you could put one Instagram message out and the whole world would see it, what would that question be? What would that say?
Okay, I know. Let's see. I thought about this question again. My hashtag is never stopping. But what would have to go along with that is that you have to remove the fear and never stop. Remove the fear. Discredit the fear. And never stop. Never stopping. Because if you don't fear, you're not going to care about failure or messing up. I don't even like to call it failure. They're lessons. And I think if you remove the fear, I think there are two roles that you play in your life that I think that sometimes we have to figure out. Is that sometimes we're followers. We have to follow a mentor. And then there are times we have to lead. And I think that every phase of our life, we're doing one of those. And what you do with that to make change for others is your choice. And so that's why I really, when I went from education to this organization, I took on a leadership role, and being a leader takes on a lot of responsibility, and especially being a pioneer. If you think of doing something for the very first time and being innovative, you know how many haters and you know how many what do you call them, Debbie Downers there are in the world who mean well, but sometimes they don't see the vision and the mission that you have, and you have to ignore those people, and that's okay. Fear of getting approval from others. So that billboard would say, fear, get rid of fear and never stop. Because fear is classified under many things. And I think once you remove the fear of having people accept you, because there aren't going to be people there are going to be people that hate you. I have people that hate me, and for whatever reason, I have people who discount, the achievements that I have. But that's not what it's about. It's not about me wanting to please them. It's about me doing what I was called to do and plowing through it. Whether you have to plow through it, go under it, over it, around it, you just do it. So, and that takes removing fear and the uncertainty in life away from your mission. More people stop and they don't complete what they're doing because of fear. But then also there comes a time when you want to lead, and then you become a follower and you seek out to mentor. And so, as like you said, the older and wiser you are, you still don't know everything. So you seek out those people who do know. And then they're going to help you through that uncertainty and that fear. But that's the mentality and what I've learned. And I wish I would have learned that in my 20s.
Well, we all do, right? But I think that's a great thing, is to have the goal of, we've got to get to the point where we forget fear.
Yeah.
Listen, this is great, and I so appreciate you doing this. I so appreciate you sharing your story with everybody, with letting me ask questions. If you want people to find you, where do you want them to go? What's the best way to follow you?
Well, if you, I have several places. I'm all over social media. I do have a public figure page on Instagram called SYNGAP Rare Tiger Mom. I do have a Facebook page called Monica Weldon. You can check me out on my website and some of the things that I've done and also available to do, because I do consulting as well, called Monica Weldon Consulting. I do public speaking. I schedule events, whether it be virtual or in person, hopefully in person soon. I'm on LinkedIn. For our organization, however, we do have a website called bridgesingap.org. We have a Facebook page under Bridge the Gap SYNGAP Education Research Foundation. We have an Instagram page. We have a Twitter. I'm also on Twitter as well under ML Weldon 5. And our Twitter handle on the organization is BSYNGAP, BSYNGAP. And come follow us. And I also have a story on Twitter for Beckett. And that's Beckett's story. And he tells his journey and what he goes through on there. And it's called Beckett the Bean, because his baby name, nickname was Bean. So we call him Bean. But check us out. You can get my book on Amazon. I'm hoping that will be in hardcover soon. Right now, it's just a downloadable version. It's a short book. I am working on a second book. It's probably going to take me about 3 more years to finish, because it's gone to 16 chapters, not 15 anymore. Because I plan on having that out once I finish law school. So, but those are the places, or you can just type me into Google. I'm not the one that lives in Las Vegas, though. Okay.
All right. Good to know. Just Google Monica Weldon, SYNGAP, SYNGAP 1. And I'm sure some of those links will populate. Thanks for being here. Thanks for doing this. Hey, to everybody who's watching, to everybody who's listening, driving, working out, working on the treadmill, whatever you're doing as you're seeing and listening to this, I would love 2 things. Number 1, send this to somebody. Each of you watching knows someone who has a child, who has a loved one, who has a family member that this would inspire, right? Whether it's a child with disabilities, whether it's a mom who's struggling, whether it's a family who just needs some encouragement, who needs to know that we've got your back, that we're going to support you, that you can get rid of fear, that you can do what you've been called to do. Whatever those are, send that to someone, subscribe. And if you're not already a part of the Facebook group, we have a secret group called Impactivists. Do a search for that and request to be added to the group. It's private right now. It's a place, as you know, where ideas and inspiration collide. It's called Impactivists. So we will see you there. And Monica, thanks for being here, man. It's great to catch up with you.
It is. I thank you for having me. It's been such a pleasure. And I have to say, I love watching your organization and the impact you're making on kids, because it's needed. So I appreciate all your work that you and your crew and your team do as well. Tribe.
There you go. That's it. We're all about tribe.
That's right.
Yeah. Thanks. All right, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks. We'll see you.